There are yellow cards in the back. Please fill one out. Bring it up front, and we can keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. That being said, can we all stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are 2 items that are adjourned this evening. If you're here for item number 1, Steve Bavaro, that will not be heard this evening. And if you're here for item number 5, Above Wall Storefronts, Inc., that's also been adjourned, will not be heard this evening. So our first item on the agenda makes it Christine Panetta, Panetta Physical Therapy, SP 2023-016, north side of West Main Street, 27A, 51 feet west of Smith Street, Bayshore, 125 West Main Street. Applicant requests a parking relaxation in connection with the change of use of 2 existing vacant commercial units to medical, physical therapy, and a fitness center personal training. Good evening.
Mike's not on.
I am the architect on the project, and as mentioned, we are requesting a parking relaxation from 76 spaces required to 0 spaces provided in connection with the change of use for 2 tenant spaces. We are in receipt of the conditions from the planning board, and the building owner and the tenants agree to all of the conditions, don't have any issues with anything. With respect to the refuse enclosure, this was really more of a question, but the access to really anything on site is a little difficult given the footprint of the building. So there's not a lot of places to put a refuse enclosure. So in talking to the building owners, a question is, does the board have any opinion on having a dumpster that can be rolled to the street rather than a truck come on site and lift the dumpster up and, put the garbage in the truck? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
It's going to boil down to screening, correct, Hannah? You want to speak to that?
Yes. So really, as far as the town engineer is concerned, he's just making sure that the refuse container is screened from off-site view. I know it'll be partially visible depending on how it's angled. I know it's a little unorthodox back there.
Right.
So, we could possibly work that out with him as long as it's screened. So if the planning board is comfortable with that, so.
Got it. Yeah. So we just wanted to make sure that there was no issue with potentially having a dumpster that you can roll to the street rather than have truck access onto the property. But other than that, of course, we're happy to do the refuse enclosure and all of the landscaping in the conditions.
Thank you. We'll come back for questions. Anybody come in and wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Gonzalez for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a business district zoned property, about 1/3 of an acre, currently improved with a 9,600 square foot building that was constructed in about 1900, but CO'd in 95 for 2 vacant units, 1 retail and 1 nail salon. In 2011, one of the vacant units was converted to a retail use, and in 2022, the other vacant unit was split into 2 separate units. So that created a total of 5 within the building. The application before you tonight, as Mr. Pfluger stated, is a change of use for those 2 vacant units, one a physical therapy office and the other a personal training space. As shown on the site plan and aerials, this lot is almost entirely occupied by the building itself, with a small courtyard facing Smith Street, similar to many lots on Main Street and Bayshore that rely entirely on municipal and street parking. Per the applicant's team, the physical therapy use will be open Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The use will be closed on the weekend. There'll be a maximum of 4 to 5 employees at one time with an anticipated visitor count of 8 per hour at peak times and 6 at non-peak times. The personal training use will be open Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Then there's a short gap that it's closed, and it'll be open again 12 to 1, and then a gap until 7 when it closes again at 8. Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. So there'll be a maximum of 2 to 3 employees at a time and 7 peak visitors per hour and 3 at the non-peak. They hired R&M Engineering to do a parking analysis based on the use types, taking parking observations in the field, applying local data as well as ITE data. Their conclusion was that adequate parking is available within the nearby vicinity of the project site in order to accommodate the potential generated demands. The vicinity of the parking lot to the north is close enough for any foot traffic to visit the site from Smith Street or walk around the corner to the main entrance for one of the units on Main Street. And as alluded to, as far as the conditions are concerned, part of the proposal, the applicant will be reconstructing the walkway servicing the physical therapy unit and its secondary entrance off of Smith Street. That includes the removal of the existing concrete platform, construction of an ADA ramp. In addition, staff has requested this courtyard area be cleaned up of any debris and other materials. The existing refuse container be provided with a new enclosure to current standards with screen plantings as well, and new plantings be provided to improve the aesthetic on this side of the building. So based on that, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
Nothing further.
Is there a motion? Mr. Frugieri?
I'll make a motion to close this public hearing and grant this application, subject to the conditions that planning has provided, and giving the applicant and planning staff the ability to work out condition number 3 regarding the refuse enclosure.
It's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to close the public hearing and grant the application subject to the conditions, giving staff and the applicant the opportunity to work out item number 3 in the covenants. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Isam Dibali, SP 2023-024, southeast corner of Montauk Highway, State Route 27A and Benson Avenue, Sayville, 272 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests a parking relaxation and modification of planning board conditions in connection with a change of use from an office to a barber shop in a multi-tenant commercial building. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. For the record, my name is Michael Mobillo, architect. My firm is Inspire Design Group. My office is located at 4964 Express Drive South, Suite 1, Ronkonkoma, New York. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The application before you this evening is for a site plan modification for a continuation of a parking relaxation that presently exists on the site. The application is that has triggered this is a change of use of a tenant space, an existing tenant space, from office to a barber shop, a personal service shop. The previous or prior planning board condition on this property was that the only allowable uses on the site were for retail and office. So my client is looking to change the use of one of the tenant spaces from an office to a barber shop. Because of the fact that this was not listed as a prior allowable use within the previous planning board condition, we are before you this evening to ask that that use or those requirements be removed from the condition. There still will remain, I think, will be listed on the site plan modification conditions that dental and chiropractic offices are still not part of the allowable uses in this site. It's I think, a pretty straightforward application. We're not seeking to increase any parking relaxation. There's a slight modification. Tanner can confirm this. I believe it's a slight actual reduction in parking that's there right now or over a previous request. But that's the application before you this evening. And if any of you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. We have no cards. Did anybody come in late who wish to be heard on this application? Just please come on up, state your name and address for the record, and fill out a yellow card afterwards. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lou Charlak. I live on 10 Benson Avenue in Sayville, New York. I'm not sure what it means by parking relaxation. It really wasn't explained very well. We've had a lot of issues with this tenant. I'm not with the tenant, with the landlord. Up until now, within the previous 18 years of garbage removal, parking, noise, and having a barber shop be put in is just going to put more stress and ruin our quality of life even more on that block. Because the apron to get into the parking lot is actually on Benson Avenue. And right now it creates a dangerous situation because nobody uses the apron on Montauk Highway to get into that parking lot. So there's going to be a lot more traffic, more garbage. As it is now, the garbage is never removed on a timely fashion. I have some pictures here for you if you'd like to see. And we've called the town at least 40 times in the last 5 years to try to get this straightened out. And while the town is helpful, the landlord and the tenant there is not. So putting a barber shop there will just increase this garbage, and that's right across the street from my house. It's like not acceptable anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll make those photos part of the record. Anyone else wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Gonzalez for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This business one zoned 1.6 acre site is currently improved with almost a 20,000 square foot multi-tenant commercial building, originally CO'd in 1973. Various uses have been occupying this building, which currently holds 3 units. The main space is a Dollar Tree with smaller spaces being occupied by a stock trading office and attorney's office. The proposal tonight is for the 2,185 square foot office space to be converted to a barber shop. In 1996, the planning board granted a parking relaxation to allow 86 parking stalls instead of the required 140 on site. This grant also stipulated that the building would be limited to a maximum of 8,700 square feet of retail and 14,400 square feet of office space, which prohibited medical. This is strictly professional office was the condition, as well as the need for the planning commissioner approval prior to each occupancy within the building. With the proposed change of use factored in, the new totals are a little under 12,200 square feet of retail, almost 5,500 square feet of office, and 2,185 square feet of personal service. Various uses have been CO'd over the years, not in congruence with that stipulation. So in addition to the parking relaxation being requested, which is 124 stalls required, where 83 are provided, the site mod conditions will reflect the elimination of that prior use square footage condition, as well as the commissioner condition should the board see fit. If new uses are changed and a parking intensification is calculated, such as this particular application, then additional relaxations would be required to go before the planning board, as is typical procedure. Although the overall degree of parking relaxation has been reduced from the original 1996 grant, that was almost 39% compared to 33% currently proposed, the change in use from office space to personal service is considered a parking intensification in terms of the required stall amount. Per the applicant's representative, the barbershop will have about 6 to 8 employees with roughly the same number of customers at a time, typical turnover between 30 and 60 minutes. Parking in front of the building is typically occupied by Dollar Tree customers. However, as you can see on the site plan and the aerials before you, there are additional parking stalls along the east side of the building and the east side of the property. A portion of the attorney's office is essentially storage space, but must be factored in under the office calculation. As there should be ample parking available at a minimum on the east side of the building, along with any available stalls in the main portion of the lot, overflow issues should not be an issue. Any future intensification would go before the board. Thus, there's a safeguard in place. Based on that, staff has conditions prepared, which have been sent to the applicant if the board has no comment or questions. I would like to see those photos, though, of the dumpster. Thank you.
Yeah, the park,
It's not, we can give you a copy of the site plan. It's not changing though, if you have an extra copy.
it's not changing.
It's be the same exact site plan. Mr. Frugiero, you have a question? Or- Correct. I just, give me one second. Mr. Frugiero.
I know, Mr. Gonzalez touched on it in his,
Yeah.
in his presentation, but I want to get a better sense of the comparison of intensification of use between the previous use and the proposed use. Previously, what was in the space? It's office.
It was, yeah, it was an office space. I believe it was an insurance office. It's slipping my mind right now, but it was an office space. So office was at 1 per 200, and we're at 1 per 150. But there has been a change over the year where I guess office tenants have, like this one major office at one end of the, like there's a law office. But over time, it appears that, the Dollar Tree space or that the retail has occupied more of a component on that property. So compared to that original grant, it's slightly less percentage-wise, from what was previously approved.
Putting the
So-
parking calculations aside.
Yeah.
The way I see it, an office use, from a traffic standpoint, is more intense when it comes to peak hour traffic generation, because
Sure.
everyone comes in the morning and leaves
Yep.
in the evening. And from a parking standpoint, most of the employees come in to work and then they stay there for at least an 8-hour period. So they're taking up spots
Yes.
during the whole day.
Yep.
Now, as far as the barber shop, to determine whether it's more or less intense of a use, how many barbers are proposed to be on site?
They're, as was stated, it's between 6, they have like 6 seats, and then with some staff, whether it's hair washing or somebody taking like a cashier, whichever, those type of things. So between 6 to 8 is the number for employees.
For employees?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, you stated that there's going to be 6 employees, 6 barbers, you had 6 chairs.
Yep.
Maybe a hair washing.
Yep.
Now, is this a barber shop or a beauty salon?
It's a barber shop. It's a barber shop.
All right, because
Yeah.
I've never got a 60-minute haircut. That's why
Yeah,
I'm
no,
questioning.
we're expected that it's not long term. That's
Oh, maybe
that's
when I
sort
was
of
younger.
that's like an industry standard for, it's less than an hour that somebody's in there.
Right.
But yeah, for a
Because-
barber shop, you're talking about a shorter time frame.
There's, let's see, 2 across the street from each other on Main Street.
Yep.
One next to the 7-Eleven, one across the street with the little shopping center.
Yeah.
Another one with the little house there. So there's probably like 5 barber shops right there. Every one of them is 1 to 2 chairs,
Yeah.
1 or 2 people.
Well,
And
it's a
why-
2,000 square foot space. So, and basically the applicant, a lot of these barbershops, they have a following. And sometimes they bring together a group of other barbers, right, that to open up an establishment. So sometimes they come from other locations, or they have a following, whether it's in town or in an adjacent hamlet. So it's just the nature of the business that when they open up, they'll have a handful of seats. It's not a small shop. I've done other barber shops. Sometimes they're as small as 1,000 or 1,200 square feet, but they have adequate space to be able to service a certain number of clientele.
Yeah, I'm just trying to establish, is it different than the typical
No, it's
barber
not
shop?
typical than
Is
any
it-
different.
Is there a
Nope.
lot of TVs? Is there sports? Is there,
No, they in and out just like regular barbershop. And there's no special theme to this. It's just your typical barbershop.
all right.
Is this moving of an existing barbershop or opening a new one?
It's going to be a new one. It's going to be a new
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Ms. Cruz?
What are the hours for the barbershop so far?
Typically, I think Monday through Friday, where you're probably looking at 9 to 5 type of thing. Weekends, weekends similar. Yeah. no extended hours on it, just, so. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about here is that we talk about a lack of intensification. There was the main reason we're here, and I don't agree with the previous conditions, is that there's a lot of uses allowed within the zone. And I guess the part of it was, maybe, there was some reasoning to it, but they just said, listen, retail and office, that's it in the building. That's what was originally proposed in the building. I think it was a supermarket. I'm thinking like an A&P years ago. They just figured that they would always kind of occupy it, that the Dollar Tree has taken over that much of that space. So, we're not seeing that there's going to be, a great, the gentleman was talking about safety and other things. They're not changing the access way to the site. I understand if there's always conditions on the main street that are ongoing as far as people turning and making left turns and using side street accesses, but we're not intending to change anything on the site as it stands right now to create any further traffic burden. As it relates to garbage and other things, I didn't see the pictures. The last time we were there, we did see the dumpster locations. We didn't observe that there was an issue, but that doesn't mean that there's not a problem. And certainly one of the conditions is that, litter and debris are supposed to be cleared at all times, and the maintenance and cleanliness of the property is to the owner of the property and the applicant. So certainly they would look to conform to any of those. I'm assuming that there's an enforcement issue potentially on the site. If people are calling into the town and things are not being picked up, then the current owner needs to step up their pickup time for their waste. As far as the traffic circumstance, we're not looking to change anything that's already there. There's already people using both of those ingress and egress on the site.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
One of the speakers tonight, our only speaker tonight, brought up the dumpster. Now, currently, I'd like to know, Tanner, what the conditions in the current property right now are for the dumpster enclosures.
As far as potential,
Well, I do see the photos that were passed in
Yeah.
part of the record now. It's open. It's not a real mess, but it's unsightly because you can see it.
Yep.
I mean, there are a couple things on the ground there when the photo was taken. It could be worse at different times and everything, but it's something that should not be seen. So what covenants do we have there now? What covenant can we put in there?
So right now, one of the proposed conditions, which is pretty standard for any site mod that comes in a lot of the planning board applications, it essentially states that the property needs to be clean, kept clean of litter and debris at all times, and that essentially the applicant and the owner are responsible for the cost of maintenance and litter cleanup. And if it is not maintained, then we have the ability to have the planning commissioner notify the property owner. If they don't rectify it within a certain amount of time, then the town reserves the right to enter the property, clean it up, assess them on their tax bill. As far as routine maintenance, gates for that enclosure should be completely closed when it's not in use. The picture that we see, it's wide open, so the property owner definitely needs to take care of that. And as far as servicing overflow, that should not be a
Well,
problem.
I'd like to
so.
see a covenant in reference to the enclosure. That can be seen from Montauk Highway. In Sayville, there's parades. Benson is a beautiful street, and the church is a block away. And it's not something that should be seen from Montauk Highway. The enclosure, we should put a covenant in that it has to be enclosed and kept closed and sightly at all times. Also, what is the buffer along the back property behind this? What does that look like currently?
That is currently occupied by existing trees, so it's a 25-foot buffer that's being maintained behind the building.
Okay, and that has been maintained?
Correct, yes.
All right.
Mr. Ruggiero?
I'd just like to add to the covenant that Mr. Brown just recommended. In addition to the dumpster area, the enclosure being kept closed at all time, the covers or the tops of the dumpsters themselves should be closed as well, to prohibit animals from getting in there and dragging the debris and the bags of garbage all around, making it worse of a problem. So, two things: that the dumpster tops have to be closed, and the dumpster enclosure itself, the fences, the gates have to be closed. Do you have any idea when the Carter picks up the?
I have no idea. I mean, generally my expectation is that it should be at least a couple of times a week. However, whatever it is, it should be stepped up. It's clear. I'm not seeing the pictures. If something's not being disposed of in the dumpsters, it's being left alongside, that means it's not adequate. So we can.
Can the property owner provide us with the current dumpster
They
schedule?
can. However, I think that all of the conditions that you're mentioning here are more than reasonable and actually should be enforced right now. Like, there's no reason why garbage should be placed outside of a dumpster. However, the pickup should be such that there's never any garbage placed outside of the dumpster, so that and the gate should always be closed. The covers should always be closed. So those conditions are very reasonable and contribute to community standards. So if we were to say that not knowing what they are offhand, because it's my client is the tenant, not the owner of the property. I would say that if they're observing regularly that the garbage being left aside, at least one additional pickup a week would be required.
So we're going to.
But it should be conditional that there should be no waste placed outside of the dumpster at any time. So they need to increase their pickups in the manner so that there's never any waste placed outside. So if they got 2 or 3 a week, it should be 4 or 5 a week or something, at least an additional pickup.
So, Mr. Mobilio, you represent the
I
tenant,
represent the
not the
tenant,
property
yeah.
owner. So,
Yeah,
where I'm going with this is the fact that while we had other conditions we were going to put in there this evening,
Yeah.
obviously against the tenant is not what we need. So, while there's a recommendation for approval, I think we're going to need to get the property owner
Yeah.
To sign off on some additional conditions
yeah.
before we
And,
go ahead with the approval for the
Yeah.
new tenant.
and what I would ask is that really they should be conditions on here, because first off, we received this list. The the owner and the tenant have already reviewed it, and these are all reasonable. In item number 7, you're just codifying to a certain extent greater than the conditions already in there. So it's saying that everything has to be kept clean of litter and debris. I would ask the board not to delay this decision, for the only reason being this is that if you are looking to act favorably on this, despite this question of refuse, my client's a small business person. He's trying to open up a barber shop. He's paying rent on his space right now. As many of you know, they have to enter into lease agreements. Things always take time to work their way through, to get engineering comments, to get planning comments, all these other things. Another month just puts a greater financial burden.
The next meeting is
Yeah.
2 weeks away, but
Okay.
more importantly than that, I mean, if we were to approve it this evening, it would be contingent upon the fact of the owner signing the
Absolutely,
conditions. You would
yeah,
not be
yeah.
issued the CO for the use of it unless the owner
Yeah.
signed the.
And absolutely
conditions.
understood. What I'm just saying is that,
Sorry.
the owner,
Sorry.
Let him say, let him come on.
okay, so the only point that I'm making is that there's a condition already in there. If stronger verbiage needs to be added in there, there's already a condition for site cleanliness on there, and that should be added as part of potentially a review, an approval tonight. That's all. I'm not looking to rush or put any pressure, but there's already a condition in there. We're just adding some specifics to it, which I don't see. They should be doing that already, so I don't see that's an issue for a landlord or anything. There is an enclosure, there is a gate, there is a cover. They just need to keep it closed and maybe add another pickup so that there's never garbage being placed outside of the dumpster.
But what you understand is that what we're discussing tonight
Yeah.
is not just putting words on paper. This is a covenant restriction that gets recorded and it runs with the land.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
the property
if that's
owner has
if that's what you feel you need to do,
Yeah.
then that's fine. I
Yeah.
can recall seeing, and my limited experience, I haven't recalled seeing a covenant for that type of thing for the garbage pickup. It's usually a condition, and it's in here, and it actually says like, hey, if it's, the condition says like the town could start charging him. The town comes in and picks it up, the garbage, and cleans it. They're getting charged for it. So I'm not looking to say that it's not appropriate, but I haven't seen a covenant placed for something like this before. You guys certainly see a lot more cases than I presented. So if you feel that that's customary, fine. But in this case, I think it's just a condition should be on there. There's already teeth in this that's saying that the site cleaning needs to be, would automatically be billed out to the owner applicant on this.
Mr. Morvillo, I
So,
appreciate your comments on this. You don't represent the landlord though, right?
I don't,
So
I
you're-
know, but I have, when I say this, the landlord has reviewed these and has accepted them. So that's my only representation of that. And you're not asking to do anything above and beyond. What I am questioning is the need for a covenant to be filed. We know that that's a process. It's got to go in front of town attorneys. It's got to be reviewed.
No,
It's gotta
there'll be a covenant added, the covenants and restrictions that are
Yeah.
in front of you this evening.
Yeah.
The planning staff and
Yeah,
we'll write those
Yeah.
up. They'll submit them to you and to the property owner.
Yeah.
If the property owner signs them, we're done. It moves forward.
okay.
There's-
Yeah,
It's not a long
yeah.
process. It's a
Got it.
matter of agreeing to the covenants.
Okay, I'm mixing up covenants versus conditions, that's
Well,
all. And
it can-
maybe,
they can be filed after the fact. They
Yeah.
got to be signed and agreed to.
Yeah.
Right. They would still run with the property.
Yeah.
Are there further questions from the board?
Why don't we see if somebody wants
Did you have something you want, a brief comment? It's not a normal procedure, but did you want to add something? Or- Just please come up to the microphone. Be very brief. It's not a normal procedure, but we will allow it.
You brought up a couple of things after I spoke that weren't privy to me, about the amount of people and the amount of traffic that are coming in. There's going to be at least 8 employees there. And then all the customers coming through all day long. So that's going to be a lot of traffic. And not only that, they were very vague on the hours it was going to be open also. And we've had multiple complaints, and Francis from Environmental was there many, many times issuing summonses, and nothing's ever changed over the last 5 to 10 to 15 years with that place. So what's going to change now that a new tenant is coming in? And I'm sorry that he's paying rent there, but we've been living there for 20 years, and we paid a lot more taxes than he's paying rent. So, I really think, I hope the board would rule in our favor with this, at least delay it. And, taking this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just give your name,
Just make sure we have your name and address for the record if you felt the yellow card.
okay.
He'll take it from you.
He'll take it from you.
So, I mean, I think at this point, we need to
okay,
get the covenants and restrictions reworded. If in fact they're agreed to,
Yep.
there'll be teeth in them so that they can be enforced if in fact they're violated. And the next meeting is 2 weeks
okay.
from today if they're agreed to.
Yep. All
So that would be my recommendation to the board is to,
Do we know if there's any violations?
we can check that as well, see if there are any current
Yeah,
open
yeah.
violations on the property as well. If there are, obviously this won't go forward
Sure,
unless
sure.
they're remedied.
Okay, I appreciate your consideration on that. Thank you.
Is there a motion? Mr.
Yeah,
Brown?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing and reserve decision tonight.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Second by Ms. Cruz. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We're reserved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Six Star Development, PB 2023-004, south side of Suffolk Avenue, County Route 100, approximately 1,420 feet east of east of Islip Avenue, New York State Route 111, Central Islip, 98 West Suffolk Avenue. Applicant requests the modification of site plan modification conditions associated with SP 2008-003 in order to permit a restaurant along with the planning board special permit for a minor restaurant in the Business 1 district pursuant to 68-272.1A. Site plan modifications may be requested as part of the application. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, members of board. My name is Albert Munarov. I'm president of Six Star Development. located 1713 Fifth Avenue, second floor, Bayshore, New York, 11706. We are seeking to get special permit to put the minor restaurant with the 16 seats on the premises there. And also get modification of site plan as necessary.
Why don't I go to a staff report from Ms. Wozniak? We'll come back for both the public portion if there are questions, as well as any further comments from you. A little out of order, but we'll do it that way. Ms. Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property is located on the south side of Suffolk Avenue, approximately a quarter mile east of Islip Avenue in Central Islip, and it's improved with a 6,500 square foot multi-tenant retail building recently constructed in 2022. Tonight, the applicant's looking to convert one of the vacant units into a minor restaurant with 16 seats. The restaurant is approximately 1,600 square feet and is located in units 4 and 5. This change in use increases the required parking by 6 stalls. This application did receive site plan approval in 2008 in order to construct the retail building, and at that time, the property required some landscaping and buffer relaxations from this board. The board did grant those relaxations given the unique property shape. However, it was also limited to the use to as of right uses only. There are no proposed changes to the exterior of the site, and the overall parking relaxation is 12%. A large portion of the proposed floor plan of the minor restaurant functions as retail, and with a mix of other uses in the building, there are no anticipated parking issues. Based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on this application that came in late? Not seeing anyone. The applicant like to add anything further? Are there any questions from the board? Is there a motion? Ms. Cruz.
I'll make a motion to grant the application based on the covenants and restrictions.
It's a motion by Ms. Cruz to grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bruno. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Town Board Application Public Hearing, the Laundry Room Realty Company, LLC, CZ 2023-007, southwest corner of Montauk Highway, State Route 27A and Marvin Lane, Islip, 204 Main Street. Applicant requests a change of zone from Business 1 District and Business 2 District to Business District and modification of deed covenants and restrictions associated with TC 4241 in order to construct a mixed-use building with 5 apartments. Site plan modifications are also required as part of the application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Raymond Giusto, Giusto, 715 South Country Road, Bayshore, New York, for the applicant. And I'd like the record to reflect the principal of the applicant, Tony Falzone, is here with us tonight. Please don't mind his sunglasses. He just had some major eye surgery, so it's not being disrespectful. Thank you. Basically, the existing site has a 2-story, 10,000 square foot building. The first floor, 5,000 square feet, is occupied by a laundromat, and the upstairs presently is completely vacant and undeveloped. And in its simplest terms, this application is just simply a way for my client to get the use and the benefit of his investment to allow 5 one-bedroom apartments of approximately 800 square feet to be built on the second floor. Prior to the purchase of the property, I believe in 2016, 2017, the property was improved by a structure which I don't know if anyone in the town remembers, of some purple building. It was a complete eyesore. And I actually downloaded on the link a picture of that structure. That's the structure that was 10,000 square feet. There was also a store or building with a canvas shop that's been taken down. That we had an overgrown lot. The applicant applied to this board in 2017. The original application was for the laundromat below and for to add a story to make 2 stories of apartments, a total of 10 apartments. a decision, I was not involved with that application, but a decision was made to back burner the apartment idea and to concentrate just on the laundromat. And this board approved the laundromat, I believe, back in 2017. Since then, our client has expended a substantial amount of money on the property. He's created what I think is a first-class facility. He's installed landscaping, planting, drainage, new parking lot. He's upgraded the building. It's certainly not a blight anymore on the community. The property, I've driven by it many times, is well maintained. It's in immaculate condition. He's invested close to $5 million in this property. I've spoken with my client. There's been no neighborhood complaints. He runs a family business, and of course, if there was any complaints, he would be personally involved with any problems that may have come up. So far, seems to be running a pretty good operation. The problem is right now there's no use of the upstairs. We have 5,000 square feet that's we can't use. So we're looking for this board to grant this approval. Originally, my client had an idea of putting offices up there. We believe it's too traffic intense and parking intense. And he's also completely dropped the idea of adding a floor. So this application is simply to allow us to build 5 one-bedroom apartments, approximately 800 square feet each, on the existing upstairs, which again is just vacant and undeveloped. We believe this is the highest and best use of the property. It's a benign use, we believe, and we believe it will have little, if any, impact on parking and also on traffic. Now, I know we always have concerns about parking and traffic, and we had previously in 2017 submitted a traffic study, which I also downloaded with Sean earlier today. And that study is actually based on 10 apartments, not the 5 that we have now. And very briefly, because I believe the study speaks for itself, it was prepared by Stonefield Engineering. It basically states that even with 10 apartments, weekday morning peak hours, we would have 42 total trips that's in and out of the facility, and it goes down and down during weekday evenings and weekend. The report makes a finding on page 3 that this type of use, and again, this is with 10 apartments, would result in a trip increase of less than 100 vehicle. Well, actually, it's going to be 42 vehicles, but any trip, any increase in trips of less than 100 vehicles under the transportation impact analysis studies would not be deemed to be a substantial increase in the volume to capacity ratio of an intersection approach. Moreover, we've placed the entrance now, it's not on Montauk Highway, it's on Marvin Lane, which would also reduce any traffic impact with people coming in and out of the facility. That's also found in the report. The report also finds that to have a multi-type use of retail below and apartments above, that type of use has different peak parking demands. Retail, the peak is during the day, and residential is at night. And that's also found on page 4 of the report. And lastly, the report, again on page 4, shows that they believe that peak parking demands during the week would only be 25 stalls. We have 36. It also shows that on weekends it would only be 26 stalls. Again, we have 36. And again, this is a report that was based on 10 apartments. We only have 5. We believe it's obviously a much less substantial impact on parking and on traffic with only 5 apartments. I also downloaded various, I asked my client, I said, I know that this, weekends are important to the board and during the day. So I had him take snapshots of his security camera at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., 6 p.m., and 10 p.m. each day since last Friday. And I've downloaded that to the board. And I think you can see from those photos that the parking lot is never full. And it's actually, my opinion is it's actually sparse. So we believe those photos show the board that there is ample parking, even with the addition of 5 one-bedroom apartments. Lastly, I'd like to point out that my client has 250 feet of street frontage along Montauk Highway. During the day and on weekdays, most of the high school students are parking along that strip. There's no parking restrictions on that strip. You can park at night. And but after school ends and on weekends and in the summers, there's no parking there. If there's ever a need for excess parking for this facility, we have 250 feet of street frontage adjacent to our facility for use. And I know the town's biggest concerns are nights and weekends, and that's obviously solves that problem. So it's our position that we believe this is the highest and best use of the property. It allows my client to get the full benefit and return on his investment. Again, he's already put in about $5 million into the laundromat and to the improvements to the property. We don't think there's a significant negative impact, and we'd ask that you approve the application. And if you have any questions of my client, he's also here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Anybody here wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to go to a staff report. We'll come back from questions. I will say, obviously, the property looks a lot better than it did. I'm glad that the intensity of the, we do have one, number 6. I take that back. We have a Louise Michelli. Come on up.
I live on Marvin Lane. My name's Louise Maselli. I live on 19 Marvin Lane. And one of my biggest concerns is that there's a value of my property. Will it go up, down? I don't know I don't know if that's going to affect the value of my property. And that little corner there, I've lived there just about all my life. And I've seen this street is a narrow street. There's 2 businesses there. There's a lunchmat plus another one. And there is, in my opinion, more traffic. And I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbor who couldn't be here today. Also, I just wanted to state the fact that I don't know if it's a fact, but I don't know if my property will go down, the value will go down. I hope not. And the congestion it's not unbearable, but there is more. And plus the one entrance, exit and entrance to that, there's going to be, if there's going to be apartments there, all right, 5 apartments, but there's going to be that much more traffic in that one entrance and exit. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Thank you. That is the only card I have. Does anybody else wish to be heard on the application? Not seeing him, I'm going to go to Mr. Colgan for a staff report. And the only point I was going to make, or the question I have for Mr. Colgan is, I drive by there often, those signs that are on the top of the building, is that something that was approved as part of the original application? Are they permitted?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This application proposes apartments above an existing laundromat. Prior to this, the property had been the subject for a change of zone for mixed-use building back in 2017. That application included a third story and was ultimately withdrawn. The applicant later filed for site plan relaxations in 2017 for a retail and office use, and that was granted. The business district is generally preferred in existing downtown areas. The comprehensive plan for this property recommended a marine district due to its waterfront access. The surrounding area consists of Business 1 and Business 2, but with several nonconforming industrial and vehicle repair businesses. This proposal would entail a new vision for this area, where some of the buildings currently have a downtown-like layout with minimal front yard setbacks, but are mostly auto-oriented businesses. The subject property is partially in an AE4 flood zone and does front tidal wetlands. The planning staff's concerns are the anticipated later hours of operation for the laundromat and the impacts to quality of life for the people who would live upstairs. The laundromat should close at a reasonable hour so that the residents upstairs wouldn't be adversely impacted by the commercial activity. The applicant stated and has submitted photos during the evening weekend hours that indicate that there seems to be a sufficient parking for both uses when they do need it. So just for the record, the overall parking requirements would be actually going down versus with the apartments versus the office use. The use is also proximate to several auto repair shops, so appropriate sound mitigation should be considered, again, to preserve the quality of life for the people who might live there. With regards to the second story signage, those did not receive sign permits. My understanding is those would not be permitted. They would need a variance, so the staff would recommend that those come down. Aside from that, it is within walking distance of the downtown area, so it's not unheard of to see small scale density being proposed in a location such as this. We leave it up to the board if we want to further explore this, or we could draft covenants, the standard covenants for a mixed use building, subject to the board's approval.
Thank you. What are the current hours of operation of the laundromat now, and what is proposed if we allow apartments there?
It's 7 in the morning to 11 at night. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're open 24 hours. But as you can see on those pictures, there's only 1 or 2 cars. I have the store cleaned up every night. So while the store is being cleaned up, I allow a customer or 2 to come in. The doors are locked. Nobody comes and goes without having laundry. And we don't have but 1 or 2 people in the store for the length of the night. As far as the noise, there's 0 noise going up to the 2nd floor. Everything has been there. What I'd like to say is that it took me 6 years. I'm sorry. It took me 6 years to open this laundromat. The amount of money I put into this is more money than I ever had. I'm working now to this day. I'm paying $24,000 a month in mortgage, property taxes, and $8,000 a month in machine cost. I'm open a year and a half. The store is gorgeous. I keep up on it. I've yet to draw a salary. I'm still paying $10,000 a month to keep my doors open, in addition to what I'm making, because I have to pay such bills. I never expected this to take 6 or 7 years. When I went to the town wanted the property fixed up so much. Okay, I put my life into it. I never expected to go 7 years. I never expected to be broken over this. There's one woman here is worried about her property value going down. All I did was increase it. The place is beautiful. I run a nice place. I have another laundromat in Bayshore. 0 complaints. I did the same thing. It was a depleted building over on Hemlock and Manitowoc Boulevard. I can flower the place every day. I'm there for over 10 years with no problems in a bad neighborhood. Okay, I run the same kind of facility. I keep the place clean, spotless, with 0 complaints to the town. I really need to get this thing done. I can't go on any further.
Thank you.
Sorry, excuse me.
Mr. Frugieri and Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown and Mr. Frugieri.
Well, I would just like to put on the record, I think it is a less intense use than the original application years ago. And I would agree with the applicant. I'm not a real estate agent or professional, but I would agree that you have improved the value of the properties there just from how blighted it was before and the improvements that you've made.
Mr. Frugieri.
Yeah, I would also agree that not only is 5 apartments less intense than 10 apartments, 5 apartments, 1-bedroom apartments are probably less intense than any other use that you would put up there, whether it be office, retail, or service-oriented type business. So I don't see that as 5 apartments as an issue here. What I do question, knowing some of the past history of apartments over retail, would you be adverse to entering into lease agreements with your tenants?
Absolutely, that's what
Yeah,
I'm doing.
we don't want month to month, week to week, that kind of thing.
I
It's,
want longevity. One of the things I like to say is my daughter's going to be living in one of them.
okay,
My daughter is taking one of the apartments and she's living there. I'm on hands. I work my store. I'm there every day. I don't allow people there drinking. I don't allow riffraff. I don't. If you go in my store, it's gorgeous.
yeah.
I'm very respectful. Women and children are very important to me. Come to the store. I run a better store than all of these all the laundromats around. The other laundromat owners don't care like I care.
Your integrity and your track record is not in question. But when this board makes a decision, they have to make a decision that lasts the test of time. And you could sell this tomorrow, and then we're dealing with a totally different landlord. So I like to see covenants and restrictions on this property that safeguard it for the long run, so that someone doesn't bring in, the month-to-month type tenant in there.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
Further, Ms. Cruz.
I do have to say that we've driven by there, and it's something that I've had catches my eye, and I've said, wow, that's really a beautiful laundromat. I'm like, and I'm a laundromat kind of person that I live in Brentwood, and in Brentwood, the laundromats, they need an upgrade in every sense of the word. So when I've passed this, it caught my eye. So I have to say you did a great job. And my only comment would be the weekend hours for those tenants upstairs. The 24 hours, maybe we could work something where it's not as intense.
It's not intense at all. If I have 2 or 3 people in there, it's not intense. But I'd like to say if you go 1.5 miles down the road, you got the same thing. You got a laundromat with apartments up there. They're open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Every laundromat is the same way. There's zero noise up on the second floor. It's not a loud place, especially at the nighttime when you go in there. If somebody comes in at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's one person, one machine running. It's zero noise, nothing. And all that does is I have the guy in there scrubbing down the store on the weekends. All it does is pick up a little bit of payroll. It's not anything where you have 20 people coming and going. If I have 2 people coming and going through the course of the night, or 3 or 4 tops.
But my concern is you set your clothes to wash, you could sit in your car, you're idling. And that's my concern with the 24-hour, is if they decide to sit in their car while their clothes is in the cycle.
The only thing I can say,
Or if they decide to, hang out, or,
if somebody's in the parking lot, honestly, when I tell you, I don't see that being a problem. It's really not. But if somebody's in the parking lot with the car running, you're certainly not even going to hear it from the laundromat or the second floor. I mean, cars come and go all day long and they pull up there. You don't hear any noise in there.
Ms. Madmore.
This is for Mr. Justo. I'm very familiar with this site. I go by it literally every day. It has been remarkably improved by the owner. At one time, and not so long ago, 15, 20 years ago, that the parcel sort of in the middle to the east of the building was actually marine use with storage of boats. And we notice in the aerial that it is on an active canal. Just so we clarify for the record, I would assume that those boats, I'll call them boat slips, that are on an active canal are probably rented out in season. And if they're not, at least I wanted the board to be aware that someday there could be, I suppose. We're not trying to create problems, but we want to know what we're doing. And I wanted to know if that was part of your financial operation as well.
I am not renting out the boat slips. by any chance I had a tenant who had a boat,
Huh.
I would let him put a boat there. Other than that, I don't have strangers going for several reasons. I can't have, if somebody rents out a dock space, they're gonna have 3 cars in the parking lot coming with their friend. Then they're on a boat drinking and making noise and everything else. So I'm not doing it for a couple of dollars. The dock space will stay empty. If somebody lives in the apartment upstairs and has a 20-foot boat or something, then I would work something out with them. But other than that, it'll never be used.
Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify that and have you speak on the subject, which you've done very nicely. And you've done a great job in improving the site, and you deserve all the credit in the world. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. I think everybody on the board agrees that the building, if anything, has cleaned up the area quite a bit. I know what it used to look like. What I think we need to do is get you to work out those covenants and restrictions with Mr. Colgan. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks. It behooves you to reach out to Mr. Colgan and try and resolve those covenants and restrictions and agree to them. So
Yeah, we'll go over that.
that being said, is there a motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Brown,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we close the public portion of the hearing and reserve decision tonight, which will give the applicant and the staff time to work out the covenant strictures. And also request that it does come back onto the agenda in 2 weeks. So we can fast track and make a decision on it in 2 weeks.
there's a motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and reserve decision with the request that it be brought back in 2 weeks. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mr. Matamore, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the application is reserved. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Let's get our skates on.
Townboard application, public hearing, Christine Collins, CZ 2023-008, southeast corner of Hawthorne Avenue and Laurel Avenue, East Islip, 53 Laurel Avenue. Applicant requests to change the zone from Industrial 1 to Residence A in order to reconstruct a single-family dwelling. Good evening.
Good evening. Thomas Bloor, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York, 11752. The intent of this application is to request a change of zone from Industrial 1 to Residence A in order to reconstruct a single-family dwelling, really just add some additions to the residence. The current Industrial 1 zone property received a variance in 1963 to erect a single-family dwelling. I believe it was part of a 2-lot subdivision at the time. Since then, the property has been maintained as a single-family residence, and the owner would like to construct a side garage addition as well as a partial second-floor addition over the existing 1-story residence. The surrounding areas primarily residential in use, although some zones are residential, business 1, and 1 other industrial lot. To the north is a large right-of-way, approximately 60 feet, to Hawthorne Avenue, and across Hawthorne is the Long Island Railroad tracks. As you may be aware, a residential use in an industrial zone has since been removed from the code. Therefore, they have no way of improving this house or putting an addition on it as an industrial zone. For the homeowner's intentions, and honestly, as well as a benefit to the entire surrounding community, I think it's in the best interest to change the zone to residential. If the board should have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody here wish to be heard on this item? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan to give us a report.
Mr. Bloor said it pretty well. There's nothing really to add other than we think this makes a lot of sense to protect the neighborhood. So we would recommend the board grant the application.
Any questions from the board? Is there a motion? Mr. Fergiari?
I'll make a motion that we close this public hearing and grant the application.
Motion by Mr. Fergiari to close the public hearing, grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bruno. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Item 8 on the agenda, Gil Singh, SP 2022-019, east side of Roebling Court, 349 feet north of Trade Zone Drive on Konkoma, 101 Roebling Court. Applicant requests relaxation of curb cut side yard property line offset in connection with the construction of industrial building. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, again, Michael Morbillo, architect and Spire Design Group, offices at 4964 Express Drive South, Suite 1, Ronkonkoma, New York. The application before you this evening is basically relaxation, primarily relaxation of a side yard setback for a curb cut for driveway access for a proposed 26,000 square foot industrial building. The purpose of the relaxation is due to basically traffic access to the site. If I have some aerial photographs if needed, but primarily the site is located directly adjacent to the MacArthur Airport residence parking lots. And there is a driveway access, which is immediately to the west of the site, to the west. Yeah, to the west of the site across the street. And we are looking to align our driveway with that driveway so there is no interference with turning and other things. There is a turning lane into that lot. So that is the reason why we're before you this evening. And if the board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated by the applicant, it's an industrial one zoned 1.6 acre property that's currently vacant, proposing a new 24,300 square foot industrial building. This application has been under site plan review by the engineering division and at this time is only requesting one minor planning board relaxation for the site. All curb cuts must maintain a 10-foot offset from any side property line. However, based upon the layout and the site, this proposal maintains less than 3 feet. The town of Islip Foreign Trade Zone was involved in the site access discussions with the engineering division, and the consensus was to provide a direct alignment with the municipal parking lot across Rubin Court for traffic safety purposes. As you can see on the aerial, those two would line up instead of having an offset. So based on the above, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, based on the Mr. Gonzalez's staff report, I make a motion that we grant the application.
This motion by Mr. Brown to grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bruno. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Site plan modification decision item, Carrie F. Stoller, SP 2022-073, southwest corner of Montauk Highway, State Route 27A and Saxon Avenue, Bay Shore, 430 East Main Street and 440 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests a landscape and relaxation in connection with the conversion of a vacant bank to a Starbucks. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anthony Guardino, partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz, Hauppauge, New York, representing the applicant. Nice to see you all again. It's always nice to see you all again, but this is the third time on this application, so I'm hoping we can get through this. There was has to do with the proposed Starbucks, and you're familiar with it, the drive-through and the outdoor seating that were approved on the site where there's an existing bank. That was the former HSBC, was an HSBC branch. This board, as you may recall, approved this application originally on May 25th of 2022 for the restaurant and drive-through. The town board also approved it, ultimately went to the zoning board. They approved it. We had to come back to this board for the outdoor seating special permit, which was on the original plans that we failed to ask for. So then the board approved that. We have DEC approval. And then we made application to the engineering division. And during their review process, they pointed out another issue that we had to deal with, and that had to do with landscaping, the amount of landscaping. This is not a situation where we are actually looking to decrease landscaping, although we have to ask for this relaxation. It's kind of a unique section of the code. Part of this, a large part of this site, because of its proximity to Awixa Creek, is within a wetland and watercourse management area overlay district that the town has. And I have not worked with that code at all, that section and that district ever before. And unbeknownst to me, and engineering was spot on, that you can't count landscaping if you're in that overlay district. Well, the problem is most of the sites in the overlay district. So it's not that we are actually providing less landscaping. We are actually providing more landscaping than the code requires. But we have to be before you to ask for a relaxation because on paper, we don't provide enough landscaping. In reality, we provide more. My client is proposing a very robust landscaping plan, which you've seen before and which you've approved. So We're back before the board, and we're hoping that the board will grant this site plan modification to allow us to proceed back to the engineering division and have them complete the review. But thank you.
So, Mr. Guardiano, you're just saying the code is wrong? We
No,
should, for everybody,
not
we
wrong.
should,
No, I wish I knew of the code, and I will know now going forward. The issue is we did look at the wetland area, but what I didn't realize was that the overlay district actually includes a 100-foot buffer beyond. So even though we're not in the wetland area, we're in the adjacent area, and that it's a pre-existing site. It's already developed, and then we realized that the line incorporates most of the site. So.
I'm going to go to Mr. Gonzalez for a report, then come back on that question for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated by Mr. Guardino, this is Business 3 zoned, almost 3/4 acre property, subject of the 2022 change of zone for a drive-through Starbucks. The planning board special permit for the outdoor seating was granted in 2023, earlier this year. Subsequent to those applications, a site plan application was submitted for engineering review. During that process, it was determined that the adjacent wetlands area and the 100-foot wetlands buffer area were not factored correctly into the landscaping calculations. Per the Town of Islip subdivision and land development regulations, as well as the town code, wetland area and the 100-foot adjacent wetlands buffer cannot count towards meeting landscaping requirements. So although landscaping was proposed by the applicant and shown on prior plans at those board actions, it cannot be counted. Thus, the applicant is before the planning board for a formal relaxation of landscaping on site. As the site plan has not changed from the prior ones before the boards, staff has no issue with the request. So based on the above, we recommend the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Are there questions from the board? So I just want to distinguish this from Mr. Guardino, because obviously the code is there, and us to just ignore the code, would create a precedent that's crazy. But I think in this case, one, we approved it. Two is that you're actually adding landscaping. It's not taking anything away. You still are adding landscaping and beautifying it. So in that regard, I think it distinguishes it from everybody else who may come before this board and seek to waive that requirement that is currently in town code.
And I agree with you. It's the first time I've ever asked for a waiver for a project where there's actually more. It's 28.3% of the
Right.
overall and like 86% of the front yard landscaping. So we only need 50. So
Yes.
and plus there's other landscaping on the adjacent property. I agree with you. This is a vast improvement, and
Yep.
I do see the distinction. Thank you.
Thank you. There a motion? Mr. Frugari.
Make a motion that we grant this application for the third time.
It's a motion by Mr. Frugari that we grant this application. I didn't catch the rest, so I won't repeat it, even though I did. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Matamore. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
thought you were going to
See you
give us a
soon.
whole lesson on all those plants. I thought you were going to give us an entire lesson on all the plants.
Beautiful.
It looks like you're
Yeah.
selling seeds.
Yeah, it'll be a great improvement with that plan. Things there. So thank you. Item 10, Planning Board Application, Decision Item 1056 Motor Parkway Associates LLC, PB 2022-029, southwest corner of Long Island Motor Parkway, County Route 67 and Wheeler Road, County Route 17, Central Islip. 1056 Motor Parkway, applicant requests a modification of Planning Board special permit conditions associated PB 2004-047 in order to reduce the number of parking stalls provided on site. Site plan modifications are also requested as part of the application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the board. My name is Hansley Mohan of Brown Altman DeLeo, 538 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 301 West, Melville, New York, 11747. Just to refresh the board's recollection, the property is located within the town's Business 2 zoning district and has been used as a one-story building with retail stores since October 26, 1983. On February 3rd, 2005, the Town Planning Board approved an application for a planning board special permit to allow the use of the Subway's restaurant at the property. Condition number 6 of the planning board special permit required that the site maintain a minimum of 54 parking stalls. Following receipt of the planning board special permit, the town's engineering department issued a letter dated July 1st, 2019, which required that several revisions to the original site plan be made. In order to address the engineering department's comments, the site was reconfigured in a way that required the elimination of several parking stalls. Under the original planning board approval, the site was required to maintain a minimum of 54 parking stalls, and under the current site plan, a total of 47 parking stalls are proposed. On January 17th of this year, we previously appeared before this board to request a modification of the prior planning board conditions in order to allow for the proposed 47 parking stalls. During the hearing, we objected to one of the proposed conditions, which included a requirement to secure and record a shared parking agreement with the adjacent property owner to the south. The board had reserved decision to provide our office with the time necessary to reach out to the adjacent property owner about the proposed shared parking agreement. On March 3rd, 2023, our office submitted a letter to the adjacent owner by certified mail requesting that they enter into a shared parking agreement. As stated in our letter submitted to the board dated April 11th, 2023, we did not receive a response from the adjacent property owner, and to date, our office has still not received any correspondence from the neighbor. Given that the adjacent property owner appears to be uninterested in entering into such an agreement, we respectfully request that the board render its decision on the application without the need for the shared parking agreement condition. We have received a copy of the proposed conditions in advance of tonight's hearing, which remove the shared parking agreement requirement. Also discussed during the public hearing in January of this year was a proposed modification to the condition, which called for a restriction on the hours of operation from between the hours of 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. We had originally proposed to the board opening earlier and allowing the Subway's restaurant to open at 5 a.m. in order to compete with the adjacent breakfast food offerings. The nearby Dunkin' Donuts opens at 5 a.m., so we had suggested opening at a similar hour and making that modification to the conditions. And with that, I ask the board if they have any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Ms. Wozniak for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the previous public hearing, the board reserved decision in order to allow the applicant time to reach out to the adjacent property owner regarding a shared parking agreement. The applicant has made several attempts at contacting the adjacent owner, but has been unsuccessful. Therefore, they are moving forward with the application without a shared parking agreement and requesting a 40% overall parking relaxation, where the previous application granted a 31% parking relaxation. The property does maintain a permanent cross-access agreement. However, if parking is ever restricted on the adjacent parcel, it may become an issue for the site. If the board feels comfortable with the relaxation, planning has prepared conditions, which include a condition that if parking issues occur, the application will be brought back before the board.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Is there a motion? Mr. Bruno?
Yes. This one is scary. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
It's a motion by Mr. Bruno to grant the application subject to conditions, if he doesn't blow the place up. Is there a second? Is there a second? Yeah. No, this is different. Second by Mr. Ruggieri. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Item 11 on the agenda, planning board application decision item, Steel Campus LLC and Marcus ISP Apartments Holdings LLC, 300 Carlton Avenue, Central Islip. Applicant requests planning board special approval for signage in the PDDMF district pursuant to 68-324E to C. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Thank you. We're here tonight to request Russell Moore, Steel Campus LLC, 999 South Oyster Bay Road, Bethpage, New York, 11714. We're here tonight to request a variance on a sign application for the Belmont at Eastview, which is a large redevelopment of the former Central Islip Psychiatric Center. We have multiple signs that are located on the property. We've presented a board here today, which is, I believe, 39.2 square feet in total, and that's the request before you.
I'm going to go to Ms. Wozniak for a staff report. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is located in the CIPDD, and it's the former NYIT campus, which is now being converted into an apartment complex with associated amenities. The site is approximately 83 acres with over 2,000 feet of street frontage on Carlton Avenue and Eastview Drive. Tonight, the applicant is looking to obtain signage approval for 6 ground signs located at the entrances into the apartment complex. Each ground sign is approximately 40 square feet and is affixed to brick walls. The signs will be pin-mounted acrylic letters mounted to a backer panel on the brick wall and will be indirectly lit. There are 2 walls with signs located on either side of the site entrances, 2 entrances on Carlton Avenue, and then 1 entrance on Eastview Drive. It is important to note the signs will require ZBA approval, as place signs are limited to 16 square feet in area and typically only 1 per property. Given the large area of the site and the overall sign design, planning recommends the board approve the proposed signage as presented tonight.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Ms. Cruz?
Hi. So I happen to have gone to Target this past weekend. And as I pull out, I see all 4 of those signs on Carlton Avenue already up. Not the actual Belmont, but the actual brick on each, 4 of them, right on Carlton Avenue. So I'm a little confused why they're already up.
Well, the structures, I believe, have been approved under the approved site plan. The signage is what's in front of the board this evening, as far as what the configuration of how that is presented.
Ms. Wozniak, they're part of the original site plan? Do you know?
I can double check that for you, but I don't have, do you have a copy of the approved site plan with you?
Not on me.
Okay. I only have the site plan that they submitted with their application, which is a
Mr. Colgan is
conceptual
checking.
one.
Yeah, I mean, if they're a part of the original site plan, then I think that's okay. If they're not a part of the original site plan, I would just say, second Ms. Cruz's question as to why they're up before our approval or ZBA approval. But
Yes, they
we
are
could
approved.
just,
Again, the variance here tonight is only for
just for the sign itself.
the surface of the sign.
Yeah, that would make sense. He's checking right now. Okay. Is there, so we're going to do this, we'll approve it subject to the condition that it's part of the original site plan. Are there any other questions from the board? Is there a motion? Mr. Frugieri?
I'll make a motion that we grant this application subject to the structures, the monument sign itself, was approved by a prior site plan.
It's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to grant this application, subject to the condition that the monument structures were part of the original approved site plan. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brown. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted.
Thank you. Thank you.
And planning board application decision item, Ella, was it Boglione, Sign Star New York, Inc., PB 2023-021, east side of Eastview Drive, west side of Lowell Avenue, 100 feet south of Goldhaven Drive, Central Islip, 625 Eastview Drive. Applicant requests planning board's approval for signage in the PDD EC district pursuant to 68-324A3A9. Is the applicant here this evening? I'm going to turn to Ms. Wozniak for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is located on the east side of Eastview Drive in Central Islip, and it's improved with an 86,000 square foot mini storage warehouse that was recently CO'd in March last year. Tonight, the applicant's looking for planning board approval of signage, which will replace previously approved signage for a former tenant. There are 2 76 square foot channel letter facial signs erected at an overall height of approximately 17.5 feet. The signs are located within the gables of the building facades facing north and west. Then there's one 30 square foot double-sided ACM panel monument style ground sign with red brick columns at an overall height of approximately 7 feet, which is located near the north entrance on Eastview Drive. The proposed signage is similar to the previously approved signage for the former self-storage tenant. Therefore, planning recommends the board approve the signage as presented.
Thank you. Any questions, I guess, from Ms. Wozniak? Not seeing any. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Bruno.
Is everybody ready for this?
No more motions.
I'd like to make a motion that we close the hearing and grant the application.
It's a motion by Mr. Bruno to grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Matamore. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions. The application is granted. Town Board application recommendation item, Craig Hink, CZ 2022-029, west side of Fifth Avenue, County Route 13A, approximately 378.9 feet north of Bartow Street, Bay Shore, 1420 and 1424 North Fifth Avenue. Applicant requests a change of zone from Residence A to Industrial 1 in order to construct a mini storage warehouse. Site plan modifications are requested as part of the application. Good evening.
Good evening, Richie Bono, 8 Hersick Place, East Islip. I'm here for Craig Hink, who's present also behind us. Good afternoon to the board. I have we had Ray Justo was our attorney on this. I requested to actually do the presentation tonight. I don't usually do this. I'm usually the deal maker behind all the deals, who usually has the attorneys come up. So I would like to do this. So basically, to explain who I am, I was a real estate broker for over 20 years in the retail and industrial market, basically in the town of Islip, in the town of Babylon, where I did most of my applications and most of my transactions. So just to give it a little bit of a parameter of what I've done I've done 4 transactions inside of the quarter mile of this site that we're up right now making a presentation for the storage. Those being the CVS on Fifth Avenue, which I was involved in the early negotiations and part of the zoning process. I also was involved with the junkyard that was formerly Poppy's Junkyard that now is Greenview Properties. I brought in Larry Gargano later on to finish the project and build it. I also was responsible for I was also involved with the McDonald's deal early on when it was used to be the lawnmower place beforehand. You had Mr. Falzone, who was here before. He owns a laundromat right down the block on Manatuck. I also was behind that whole transaction when we took the shopping center from a blight and we added on and beautified the whole thing. Kind of like in that area where all those apartments are and those condos. So just to give you a little bit of a background of what I've been doing in this area for many, many years. I guess what I would like to have the board really see from the street, basically from somebody who procures a lot of these transactions and how difficult they are to find these properties and, be able to redevelop them and fix blights, which I've been behind many, many blights over the last 25 years in this town. When you have to go out on the street and look at these projects and, figure out what goes where and what works. I have a very high success rate of bringing applications to board. I've been discussing this along with Mr. Colligan down at the planning department, and he has a different opinion on what he felt would fit best on the site. And even though I do like working with him together, sometimes we don't always meet eye to eye on what will happen on what property it is. So I'll give you a little background. Mr. Hink, who is now an operator of a storage facility that we're building in Patchogue Village, that is very similar to this site, was a Residence A that we had converted to industrial zone. It's 3 acres. It's a lot large property along with the building. We were specifically with his partners looking for one more extra site to do. So we hired Self-Storage 101, which is the leading storage facility. Basically, what they do is they take the markets, they know which markets are saturated, which ones are in need. So when we requested that from him originally about 1.5 years ago, he came back with this market in this area, happens to have a big need for the self-storage. I do understand that the town of Islip has been getting inundated with a lot of applications, mainly towards the east end of the town of Islip in that Bohemia, Sayville, Bayport, Blue Point market. I know it's getting very aggressive in CI. We tend to agree with Mr. Colligan on what's happened in the town as far as those applications. We believe that because we were able to not just throw up anything against the wall, we've been specifically looking in a target area. And what I was looking for was a blighted property that was near anything that's industrial looking or office use. And I wouldn't bring anything in that wasn't. So originally, when I saw this property, when it came on the market, they had a large building that's right next door to it located. It's called the Kramer Learning Center. And I have for the board the actual decision that was done on the Kramer Learning Center when it happened in 1988. So the building that consists on that site happens to be it's I know that they're saying that the use is a school use on the residential property, but it's a commercial building. I would say more similar to like a Kiddie Academy or Tutor Time or something like that, where the business itself isn't just the schooling. There's a lot of other things going on in this administratively and other things in this building. I think there's approximately 40 employees in that building that go in and out of there. So we believed, dealing with the site, I spoke to the neighbors, the neighboring properties that are owner occupied. There's 3 other houses that are within a close parameter of the property that they're all non-owner occupied. They're rented, which would be the properties to the north. The property to the west is a nice old woman who's been living in the house for 60 years. She's very much for the supporting this application. She would like to see, right now, presently, the use next to her is a vacant lot that's being used for landscaping vehicles, vans for like painting companies, something like that. They've been being rented out for over the last 40 years. So she when she saw the plan, she saw that, we're going to do we're hoping, if we get it approved, that we would do all new landscaping that would wrap around and beautify the back portion since we can't build on it. And she then also had the other neighbor on the other side on Fifth Avenue also in support. So I had asked them to come down, but they really don't want to get involved. But no one showed up against this application. So just to give you a little terrain on the property. So what I did here first was I did a map based on the area itself. On all the green dots you see in this area, these are all industrial uses where the site, I'm sorry, I'll flip it over. You're looking at Spur Drive up here. Our site's on the red right there. And every green building right there is all industrial buildings with offices. The ones I colored with the orange markers are the ones that have less than 20 feet as far as their side yard setback on the north side. So what I did is I took pictures and stuff that I could supply to Mr. Colligan at the planning department if need be. But I wanted to give a bigger picture of really what I was looking to do and why I'm not looking to put something somewhere that shouldn't or doesn't belong to be. So one of the things that we know right away is that the storage facility has 0 traffic impact, which is the most important, I think, issue as far as any development on this location, since it's a 4-lane highway where there's no traffic light until you go up to Spur Drive or when you go closer down to the post office. So one of the things that we did was because of the terrain, you could see on the rendering, it actually extends up almost, I think it's about 9 feet, right? I think it goes up almost about 8 or 9 feet from the Fifth Avenue to the back of North Clinton. So we did some water borings. We did some samplings on there to make sure that, we weren't hitting any water. Sean had requested that I do that because he thought maybe we would hit the stream. And we did find out where the stream is, and it wasn't where we're putting the building. It's actually just off the property. So when you see that design right there, that is that from the street, from the land up, basically is in the rear of the property. So you're going to only have 2-story building that will be the same size height as the Kramer Learning Center building, which is exactly the same height as that we're requesting. I think they have a lower floor also. I'm not really sure. I've never been inside their building, but what we did was we were able to come up with the design. So just the front part of it's going to be the entranceway. There won't be garage doors around it, which is a little unusual in sight, but we found out that the need is really for the climate controlled storage. So most of the stuff comes through the front door, which will be a double door, which will be a roll-up door just right next to that entrance. We gave it a residential look, as you could see right there. We kind of wanted to emulate the new one that they're building on Grand Avenue, just south, just to get south of the railroad tracks that they're building right now, the Lighthouse Storage, I think it's called. So we wanted to give kind of the flavor because we're feeling is that if the residential is really the issue, that maybe we can make the design more blend into it. Most of the buildings that are to the north of it are really more just the industrial 1980s, 1990s look that they were building at the time. So I think that at that point, I think the design is, and obviously we're open to any changes on the design also. We're not, sitting hard on that one. So, we when we did the site plan, we've been working with the town for, I guess, the last 6 to 8 months on trying to condense the size of the building and also trying to alleviate any of the variances that would be required. So obviously with the side yard setback, we just felt like I could not design the site effectively to make it fiscally work without having the building pushed closer to the north side. Now, if you could see the building as it tapers off, it goes almost out to 25 feet in the rear of the building towards North Clinton. So it's a 15-foot buffer where the house exists right now, buffering the Kramer building right now as we speak. And then it tapers back where we're getting more room. There's a bunch of buildings in that area that have the same type of design where they start off and then they taper off towards the rear, which is what we did. Our feeling is also right now the property is throwing, I think it's about $14,000 a year in taxes. This property, without any impact on any of the schools or any of the services necessary, will be about 10 times to 12 times the amount of what it's collecting right now. The owner has been there for his family generations. They're multiple family generated, the person who lives there. He was very picky on what he wanted to happen there, and he believed in this application right from the beginning. He's been, like I said, he's looking to relocate out of Long Island. He's older now, and that's the only reason he's selling it. Right now, the property presently is, I would consider a blight. None of the houses have been improved. The northerly house is rented. It's not occupied by the owner. He occupies the south house. There right now is a foreclosure to the south of the property on a Fifth Avenue side that's been boarded up. It's been a long issue. I've been in negotiations with the bank recently, trying to figure out a way where I could eventually later on be able to do something possibly with that house, because it either needs to come down, or I don't know really exactly when it will be sold, because there's a lot of foreclosure actions happening on it. So I'm just trying to sort my way through it. Outside of that, I mean, the neighbors have all shown support. The other neighbors are all renters, so really didn't look forward to asking them anything. So I think that's really basically it. We were here before. I think we addressed we're only gonna have one pylon sign on the road, and I really think that it's gonna. I think there's a uniformity to the look. If you come down, especially if you're coming from the north heading south, that this would blend in along with all the other properties that I designated on here as a long list of industrial ones, and a lot of them that you guys would know that they're there's the better buildings are really on Fifth Avenue. The North Clinton ones are really just the straight up industrial buildings. So and that's really, I guess that's about it. So I mean, if there's any questions.
Thank you. Why don't we go to a staff report from Mr. Colgan, then we'll come back for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application was previously heard on November 30th of last year. The primary concerns raised at that time were rezoning residential property to industrial adjacent and near other residential properties, and the magnitude of the site plan relaxations and variances that would have been requested with the original proposal. Since that time, the applicant has revised the site plan to include just one building with the gross floor area that has been lowered from around 53,270 square feet to 41,898 square feet, with the basement constituting 1/3 of that. The landscaping has been corrected from 14.3% overall to 11.1%, and the site circulation has been altered to one-way, entering from Fifth Avenue and exiting out onto North Clinton Avenue. It is not clear for the reasoning for the right-out egress onto Fifth Avenue in light of this change, but that would be up to the Suffolk County Department of Public Works should this application move forward. The buffer was expanded to a conforming 25 feet to those residential properties to the south, but only provides 15 feet for the school property to the north. The applicant submitted a market feasibility study, which stated that Fifth Avenue is a high-traffic road, often used by commercial vehicles. This type of roadway has a negative impact on the value of residential use real estate. Industrial use properties benefit from such a roadway, as it permits large trucks good access to major highways in the area. It further states that the property to the north is a commercial use and industrial properties exist to the north of that property and to the west of the subject property. Lastly, it concludes that the proposed industrial 1 zone would permit development that conforms to similar uses in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, and the subject property meets the requirements for minimum lot area with maximum building height and lot coverage and would represent a legal and non-conforming use. While the market study is correct that there are industrial properties within the vicinity of the subject property, it is incorrect that the proposed development constitutes a conforming use as designed right now, does not comply with the floor area ratio requirements for a mini storage warehouse. It also did not address how uses that permit large trucks could impact residential uses. Because of the noters that come with trucks and industrial uses, the town has generally found that residential industrial zones are generally incompatible without extenuating mitigating circumstances, such as pre-existing superior buffers. If the board is concerned about the current conditions or viability of a residential use at this location, the staff believes that a transitional zone should be explored, which would not further exacerbate negative impacts to the nearby residences or perhaps set a negative precedent. So we leave it up for the board's discussion. That
I would like to add something that when we did a search on the learning center next door, in the decision they basically, and I made copies for everybody so they could read them. This area is replete with junkyards and factories, and although it is a residential A area, it is generally not developed in a residential manner. That was what they used to build that so-called school next door. And the other part, it also says in the next paragraph, this is not a true residential neighborhood. So the declaration was made when they first allowed that building to be built was on the same zoning as what we're looking to do. So, I mean, I just wanted to make that on the record, and I'm going to leave copies of that decision with the board members.
Questions with Mr. Bruno?
I'm not surprised your market study says all these things that are favorable to your property. And as a matter of fact, if we followed every market study that we've ever been handed, we would just sit here and grant everything that's ever been asked for. So I have to tell you, saying it doesn't necessarily make it true. Now, there are certain questions that we ask as a board, and one of the things you look at is first, and this is something I learned when I was on literally the other side of this table, Tom Miles, who was commissioner for a long time, asked the first basic question is the existing zoning appropriate? And the question is, if it is not, then what, and you're saying the whole area should change, well, that's a different question than asking us to spot zone something in the middle of a bunch of residential properties and say, well, let's just stick an industrial property in here.
Well, that's what I wasn't doing. The reason
That's exactly what you're doing.
The reason was when I first went on the site and we started going after it, the building next door, we didn't realize exactly what that was still zoned for, even though the building was there. I wasn't looking to not make it comply in a line. I was looking to stay in the line of, so that's why I was doing it. It's adjacent to the other building.
I understand what you're looking for. And that's a very interesting thing because you keep talking about what you're looking for, and what you're looking for is an investment. I get that. Okay. But that's why everybody comes in front of us. And it's rather amazing, really, that zoning has existed in the town of Islip since 1938. And every 2 weeks we discuss rezoning. That's not to say that that's inappropriate. But what I am saying is that there's a zoning there now that does dominate along that area. You're asking us to individually change one piece of it. Now, when we've done that, okay, the town created certain other zonings specifically to deal with what happens. One, I can tell you from experience, industrial properties against residential, I never looked at kindly. Even if you go that way, look at the buffer requirements. They're very high. Okay, for when you do that. The other issue with that is that the town has also created transitional zonings. GST, for example, the T is transitional. The recognition that, yes, things don't just keep going in one way. At some point, you make a transition. You're not making a transition. You're just breaking this in there. So I have to tell you, I'm not personally in favor of this. I don't think it's appropriate for this location for the reasons I've just stated. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
I mean, the architecture, I'll agree with you. It is, the architecture is nice. And I do like that. But when I look, I have the site plan in front of me. The first thought that comes to mind is 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. You know, and you're asking for, which you could explain to me, for an FIR of 1, and you don't even meet the 25% overall landscaping requirement. So the plan doesn't comply with the 20% overall requirement. I'm looking at a 15-foot buffer.
Can I answer the landscaping issue?
Well, you
Okay.
can group them together.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I'm
I'll let you
looking
go.
at a 15-foot buffer, and we're not meeting a 50-foot setback.
Okay, so as far as one landscaping issue that you brought up, part of the property that goes to North Clinton, this property goes from Fifth Avenue to the other side on North Clinton, which is presently being used for outdoor storage that's been going on for over 40 years, maybe 50 years. We weren't able to use that calculations in the so-called buffer, but we included it and we made it extra landscaping and, you know, an extra buffer just in the rear, which really this woman here, and this child, was really pleased with when she saw that, because she saw that, one, she doesn't have to look at the cars coming in and out of there every morning, which, you know, is every morning they take those trucks out of there. You know, like, there's nothing she could really do about it. So, but I'm just saying that as a state, there is more landscaping than we're allowed to use in the calculations, but it's on the site.
Right, but I'm just saying, you're going from industrial 1 to residential and not even meeting the landscaping requirements in the FAR. You know, it's far reach to me. All right. You know, when you, like I said, my first thought was, you know, 10 pounds into a 5-pound bag. And looking at the site pound, this compounded with the change of the zone with the industrial residential nearby, it's troubling to me.
I have a comment. Mr. Frugieri?
Just to add another aspect of concern on this application is the precedent that it sets. You know, you mentioned, and you have your presentation there cited a lot of industrial uses. All of those industrial uses are situated between North Clinton and Fifth Avenue. But right across the street on Fifth Avenue is clearly an all residential community. There's residential communities on Lombardi Boulevard, further south on North Clinton. It's all residential. There's spots, areas of industrial development in this area. And for whatever reason that occurred in the past, that doesn't mean we repeat those mistakes going forward and make it a condition even worse. I think we have to preserve a character of the community, not by adding more industrial uses into a residential neighborhood, because I think it sets a dangerous precedent, especially when you don't meet a lot of the site requirements.
I don't know, should I answer that, or? Yeah. Again, being one of the, I think, preeminent site selectors over the last 25 years in this town, and the projects I've worked on and what I brought in front of this town, I have a very high success rate only because I don't like to jam something into, you know, on a site that does not, one, work as far as, you know, access, it doesn't work as far as size, it doesn't work as far as, so from the beginning when I believed in this, I know that me and Sean had many discussions about this, and I do know that you guys have your own responsibilities for the duties that you take, and that what I wanted to really make it known is that being on the streets and being one of the guys out there, and there's been multiple deals, including the Falzone one that you were here today. I was behind that whole transaction that took down the Canvas place, sold them the building, came up with the whole thing, was able to move them in there and beautified that whole corner. And I was fought tooth and nail on that one. Just like I was fought on the CVS on Fifth Avenue, which was right across the street from a horrible shopping center that's owned by Laundry Palace that we all know is nothing but issues over there night and day. Then, you know, basically behind the transaction, which was Poppy's junkyard on North Clinton, that they told me in planning when I went first down there, hey, we don't want residential. So I went and I kept going and I kept plugging along because I knew and I believed that would be the best use. We got it approved. After it was approved, Gargano came back in here and he got 10 more units than what we got. So I was, you know, I had a little bit of bitty taste, but it doesn't matter to me because it's always about the next transaction for me. So being behind that and then working on the McDonald's and working on the Falzone one that's north, I think what I'm saying to you guys is that what I've done in this immediate area, I would think that gives me a little extra clout as far as what I see. I know that Sean has a job and he's there but a transitional area, I don't understand where that would even come from, based on that. We all know that the Learning Center is not a school, a public school. It's just like the rest of the 4 not-for-profit schools that are being built, the Tudor Times, the Kitty Academies, all the rest of them. This was just for special needs, and they built a big building on a small lot. And, you know, anyone who knows that building would be able to, you know, go along with me on that one. They would see it and they would know that what I'm looking to do is not any larger than what they have next door. So my feeling was what would be the most important thing also would be traffic impact. And this use doesn't have that traffic impact that any other uses would be. I know my belief is, as experience, and I will declare myself an expert, just in the downtowns, what we've been seeing in the last 5 years is becoming a medical dystopia in the town of Islip, as far as every application coming in for a new medical building, a new application coming in for, you know, whatever it is, the parking garages, I could go on and on of 50 deals that have been done in the last 5 or 6 years up and down here that really been cakewalked in because they're medical use. And I know that the need must be there while they're being so aggressive, but I know a lot more about Northwell and, you know, their practices on how they handle a lot of other towns and what they do. And it's a business model they have. And, you know, they've been gobbling up a lot of the real estate up and down. So it's very, very difficult to find. So when I say as far as the plans being what you said, the market study, well, we had 2 market studies done. One was the market impact study done by one of the highly regarded appraisers on Long Island who does this in every town, and he makes a market impact study. The Storage 101 study was done basically for specifically targeting the areas that have a need. So that's the only reason why I was looking. I'll be honest, I was looking for over a year and a half to find a site. Yeah. And when I found this site, because of the blight and it's not a true residential use because there's an industrial use being used on the property as we speak in the rear. And no one's ever done anything about it. I know he doesn't have any citations. It's been going on for whatever, 50 years. It's on the North Clinton side. So maybe, you know, like Sean told me, it's a non-conforming lot. I don't know. But I'm just saying, when I saw it all, I felt this vision that I have would beautify this area coming down instead of looking at these 2 houses and then the house next door that's been boarded up for, I think, almost 10 years now, just to the south of it. And then they built a brand new house on the other side of it, which really didn't make sense because then you have the church that's empty just to the north. And then, you know, then you have the Greenview property that's just to the south of it, that they, you know, basically built all those senior 55 and olders. I think it was when I first started, it was almost 30 years ago when he built that, believe it or not. And that didn't conform at the time either. And like I said, you know, the CVS was no easy task, but it ended up being a need for the community. And it's a good thing that it's there still. And that I hope that they keep it open because I know they're going to be closing some stores, I was told recently. So I'm really hoping that they keep that one open. But again, I just think that I have a lot of experience, especially in this exact area.
Let me just clarify. This is not about you.
No, I get
All right,
that.
and it's not about your reputation. You have an outstanding reputation as a developer, and but when we look at applications, we're not looking at the person at the podium because it's not about them. It's about the application that's before us. In fact, in your presentation just now, you made my argument because you cited the Kramer Learning Center as precedent. You said they put a very large building on a residential lot. So what's to stop the person to the south of you from coming back if we approve this and making that same argument? That's what I'm saying.
I'll tell you, Mr.
You take
Ferrigeri,
it, you let one in.
I can answer that
And then we let a
question.
second one in, and the next thing you know,
Well,
you're changing the character.
This was the only lot available that has a double lot, basically triple lot. Okay, the parcels to the south is a tiny, small piece sliver. I would only want to acquire it just to beautify and not have it next door. The other two houses are, that's it. They're one's brand new, and the other one's just to the south of it. So there's no other room to do it. The reason why I said is Kramer also has the side yard variance that they don't have the required buffer for their building, and obviously we would be a great co-existing whatever you want to call it, co-owner next door to it because we have very little impact. The business operations, you just basically it's manually you come in and out of the place outside the business hours. There'll be 2 people working there during the day. It's not open at night. It'll be electronic gates, so no one's going to be going in and out of there without having the codes. I appreciate what you say, and part of this, it isn't about me. You're right. So what I was making it more about was that I try to figure out what works on what properties that you come across that need to be redeveloped, and one of them recently was one of them on Main Street, which was the old Putt-Putt Golf that Jim Nazaro ended up buying from us because we were going to do a residential. And then he came in because he had Northwell that wanted to build a big giant building. So we got out of the deal, we moved it because it was for the better of the community and the town wanted it. So there's certain times that I do, have to pivot and make that move, based on the business end aspect. But I know it's not about me, but I believe in this that much. I believe that the blight there is a lot worse than anything else. And I can't figure out a transitional use that would work there fiscally, or as far as if I build a medical building, I've already did that early on. There was no interest. They didn't want to be up in that area. That's not where they wanted to be. They want to be closer, on the south side of Sunrise. So, right from the get-go, when we first spoke with the planning department, I went down those routes. I wanted to see what could we do. And Craig knows we spent a lot of money on, trying to come up with different type of uses. That street is believe it or not, it's for a 4-lane highway that doesn't have lights up and down. It's a pretty complicated drive pattern that comes out of there because of the spur drive outlet that everyone seems to be coming home on because they're cutting around off the Southern State Parkway or they're going to work usually straight up it. So what I'd like the board to consider is just heavily consider. I understand some of the concerns, and maybe we could alleviate some of them and come to some sort of, some sort of resolution of maybe something that you guys may like as far as maybe a little bit more with the size or the buffer. Because look, again, the buffer it does go to 25 feet to the rear of the building. It starts 15 feet. And if I didn't see there was like 7 other buildings with that type of buffer in that area, I wouldn't have brought it here. We wouldn't have had it on here. I wouldn't, originally when we talked to Sean said, if you're going to go for a variance, slide it over to the north. Don't push it out to the south end. So, that we took that in and then I made them taper it so we could get more room in the rear. So again, like you said, transitional area. Well, what other uses? Right now, what we're looking at right now is 2 homes that are about 90 years old that have never been updated. You got no driveways. You have dirt parking lots in there. You have the rear and the back where it's being used for industrial use already. So again, I appreciate your concerns and stuff. We're open to amending somehow a little bit more to please. I just wouldn't know any other use to bring to the property, to be honest with you. And I've handled a lot of different, tenants, uses, whatever it is, up and down.
Are there further questions from the board?
I mean,
Good.
I think, I'm not going to say your argument, but your presentation would carry a lot more weight if it was, if it was in compliance with the FAR and landscaping and setbacks and everything like that. I'm not going to disagree with Mr. Bruno, as being a transitional piece. That the school as it is a residential piece.
Technically, I mean, let's all, as business people and people who live in the real world, we all know it's not a residential
But
property.
if it was leveled tomorrow, it's a residential piece of property.
No, I understand that. I have for the board the decision. They declared that in the decision that this is not a typical residential area in this decision from 88. They make it known that they don't look at this corridor in that area in any way of residential area, even though you're right. There's the other side. I would say the east side does have the homes, but then you got the logger who just went up here in front of the board last week, who's doing all the tree logging, and he's out on Fifth Avenue on the other side, and he's not beautifying that property one bit.
But I'm just looking specifically at this piece, and the sheer size of it and everything, and that's where I am.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes, we've heard what you have to say. You're passionate about it. We understand. Again, it's not changed my opinion on spot zoning for an industrial piece. What I'm talking about, and somebody just spent the money to build a new house, okay? Somebody's decided that this is a residential area. Now, and I'm only offering one thought. Personal, has nothing to do, the rest of the board might shake their heads no. But the question becomes, for example, transitional might be some sort of multifamily dwelling, maybe to the point of apartments, okay? I'm just saying to you that that would be a residential use that is transitional between Kramer and single-family houses. This is something that on busy roads we have seen. Again, I'm not looking at the rest of the board. They could all be shaking
I
their head
understand.
going, this is a terrible
No,
idea.
I understand what you're saying.
And they might
No, I mean,
flog me later. But the
Sean had
point is,
suggested that too to me early on.
Okay.
The multi-residential use. He had done that.
I'm saying to you that for me, that is a much better fit of what's going on and the roadway situation and the zoning situation as opposed to what you're proposing now.
I appreciate how you feel about that, and obviously that's your position. Again, we tried multiple ways, and myself being what I do on my own outside of building it and everything else, I explored a lot of different uses to bring to the property, and it is in a sewer district, and if it was a multi-residential, it would need because it's 3 parcels that I'm purchasing. Or Craig's purchasing, the monetarily issue that we have would drive that we would need to do something that would give something close to what I got on Poppy's down the block on North Clinton. And everyone fought me on that one. I don't know who was on that board at that time. That was probably about 12 years ago or 10 years ago. And I battled that one too. And and I looked at it, and that's a beautiful project if you guys are aware of it, where it used to be. That the junkyard was there. It's really came out really nice how it does. He was allowed to go 3 stories on them. Do like the garage. Would we be open to something like that? Maybe possibly if we could get it to lay out. We were just using the 1.0, Mr. Brown. We were using the 1.0 basically because we were going to do the extreme architecture. So basically with that allowed, that you're not even looking, all I was looking for was the zoning and the setback variance. What I do know is there is a need in the market for this use, even though there are 1 or 2, there's 2 different ones on the north end, but we know as far as all the other big guys out there, any one of them would jump on this thing the next day, if because it's a target area for it. That's, and that was the basis behind why I was out on the road looking at these parcels.
That's not a determinant for me. In other words, you could tell me that Starbucks would like to build the biggest Starbucks ever on this site, and they'd be happy to do it. And that wouldn't sway me to decide that that would be the appropriate zoning, okay?
I understand
I'm
that.
not,
That would be
I'm not
egregious, though.
debating, I'm not debating
Okay.
that there's a market for it. I don't believe any of us have debated that your use from that perspective. We're talking about it in relation to this neighborhood, this location, and the change of zone. I don't see it as justified along this area. That's my point. Again, because I think of it as spot zoning, and it's, I don't think it's compatible with what's right there. And by the way, there is a difference in levels of blight, and I think a couple of blighted houses is not the same as
That's
a
correct.
junkyard.
I
So
agree
I
with you,
think
too.
we have to look at that as well.
100%, I agree with you on it. All I'm saying is what's there now is not, it's not, I wouldn't declare it as a blight, but if you're going to declare something close to a blight, that's what I would declare it. But again, the owner himself, the seller, when we got involved with this deal, he was really picky on what he wanted there because he knew what the neighbors would want. And their number one thing was they didn't want any traffic. And that's why he liked the use when I came to him. Obviously, he doesn't have any say on whether or not he could put the use there. But that was one of the driving factors when we did it, even though a residential component wouldn't have a big impact either as far as, the traffic itself. It would still be increasingly a lot more than this use, I would think. You're looking, and as far as the trucks going out of there, there's not more than the 18-foot U-Haul that comes in and out of there. So there's no tractor trailers or rigs going to be coming in and out of this site. So where they would be the typical, we left the gate open in the rear for it's lock gate. So if someone had to go through and come out, it would open up and lock automatically. It'd be an automatic gate. But that's really basically it. I don't know if there's anything else.
Anything further from the board? I'm not going to speak on it because my opinions are similar to those of Mr. Bruno, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Frugieri. I also do like Mr. Bruno's idea or possibility of what could go on that site. But again, spot zoning for me, as Mr. Frugieri said, I think you proved the point tonight that as we continue to spot zone, somebody will come back in and cite this is the next reason why they can go further south or into a different area that's between residential A properties or the like. So I support what my colleagues have said here. The building looks nice. It's just not the right place based on the current zoning and the zoning that's immediately around it. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr.?
I don't think so. I think basically I gave what I had.
Is there a motion? Anyone?
I'll make a
Mr.
motion.
Frugieri?
You said you gave what you had, and I think you made a great effort and you made a great presentation. But with that said, for all the reasons myself and my colleagues have mentioned this evening, I'm going to make a motion that we deny this application.
So motion by Mr. Frugieri to deny the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bruno. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is denied. Thank you. Is there a motion? Adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
This is a motion by Mr. Brown to adjourn, second by Mr. Matamore. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. We're adjourned. For me, it's just